I'd like to welcome you to the Ollie Fab Friday program for today. We have a stellar panel with us and our athletic director. All right, so we've been running these, as I said, since 2009, and we're always striving for something interesting and informative for our attendees. And this time I think we've really hit one out of the park. Or maybe we made a hole in one. I don't. Might even be a slam dunk if we're talking about interesting and informative. I think we're ready for it. I'm delighted to introduce Athletic Director Janet Cohn. She has held that position here at the University of North Carolina, Asheville since 2004. And in that time, the Bulldogs have won more than 30 South Conference championships. And also numerous student athletes have achieved All-American honors. Academically, the athletic department boasts a graduation rate and a GPA rate higher than the average for the student body. They're very proud of that, rightfully so. And this reflects A.D. Cohn's emphasis on academics as well as a challenging athletic program. She received national recognition last year for being the Athletic Director of the Year from the national organization. So for me, as a Bulldog fan myself, attending numerous, look who's here, it's Rocky, oh, fabulous. As a fan myself, attending numerous basketball games, some baseball, soccer, volleyball, and track and field, I, like many others, am a great admirer of the athletic department's supportive work with more than 200 student athletes. We're also delighted to have with us several Bulldog coaches and possibly UNC Asheville's biggest athletics fan, Chancellor Kimberly Van Noort. I can attest that I have seen her at nearly every sporting event I've attended. So later on, Janet will invite some questions from you and the folks online. And when we do get to that, if you're here in the room asking a question, raise your hand and we will run a microphone over to you so that the folks online can hear your question. And now my most important announcement of all, please double check you have silenced your devices. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, so much. And first of all, I want to say thank you for those of you that are here in person and the people that are watching through Zoom. It's always a great day to be a Bulldog. And for those of you that are not here, yes, Rocky made a grand entrance, and everybody was more impressed with Rocky than us. So let's get real. You know, I've been honored and privileged to serve this university now for well over 20 years. And one of the true I think, highlights of my career was serving on the search committee that hired Catherine Frank, who leads, yes. Early on, I realized that this Ollie and what you do and what this Ollie program means to our university is also very important to the success of our university and our athletic department. So we are really honored to be here with you today. I also was smart enough when I was asked to do this. I'm like, if Larry Griswold is going to be in the audience, no one can teach like Larry. So I'm getting a panel. I do not want to compete with him. So I want to thank, and I think I got them by saying my distinguished panel, and they really are distinguished. And I'm going to allow each of them, we're going to go down the line just to briefly introduce themselves so that you know who's on the panel. And then instead of me doing a presentation about the athletic department, I want you to learn from someone other than the AD a little more about Bulldog athletics. So Colin, why don't you kick us off and introduce yourself and how long you've been here?
Yes. I'm Colin Smith, Associate AD for Internal Operations. Been here for about going on 5 years.
I'm Mike Morrell. I'm the head men's basketball coach. This will be my 8th season.
I'm Kim Van Noort. I'm the chancellor here at UNC Asheville.
Alex Rayburn, head baseball coach. This is my 2nd year at UNC Asheville.
I'm Rebecca Nelms. I'm the assistant athletic director for student athlete success, and I've been here 20 years.
Yep. Well, thank y'all for being here. That's the easiest question they'll have all day, by the way. And so, because the chancellor's here and she is my boss, I am definitely going to start with her. Chancellor, first of all, for the audience, not just about Bulldog athletics, but I have a two-part question for you. In higher ed at universities, what do you see as the role of an athletic department, and particularly here at UNC Asheville, that you now have spent so much time with us, what do we bring to the university as a Bulldog athletic department?
Thank you, Janet. I've been a student of athletics almost from the time I started higher education, because I do feel that it's a very important component. It's a very controversial topic these days. There are many different types of universities out there with many different types of athletic programs. And in the best of worlds, the athletic programs serve as the front porch of the university. They serve as a catalyst for student involvement and engagement. They bring people together in ways that very few other activities can do. They bring together affinity groups, people who truly care and want to get to know not only the teams, but each other as well. And so it's a very important part of university life, I think, I firmly believe. Although, and I'm sure that we'll have some conversation around this, things have changed a great deal in the past 15 years, 15, 20 years. I went to a big football school for college, the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and was involved in the athletics program there, not as an athlete, but as a tutor and as a friend. We had a big friend group, student group. And the athletic programs are so different at so many different places. And one thing, when I came here, I knew that I was going to learn a great deal from one of the most successful athletic directors in the entire NCAA Division I. And I certainly have learned that. And what I have learned is that for our university, the athletics program really stands as a beacon and a model for others to follow. I don't know how familiar you are with our program, but it is quite unique because our student athletes are students first. And their athletic performance, obviously, and participation is very, very important. But this program truly puts the academic side squarely in front of those students. And not only that, we pay a lot of attention to what happens to our athletes when they leave us. We make sure that they have professional opportunities, internships, mentor programs, ways and pathways. Most of them will not go on to play professionally. Some of them do, but most do not. And so how do we ensure that their time here is preparing them for life after college? That's an often difficult transition for an athlete whose lives are overwhelmed and completely regimented by their athletic practice and their competitions. And so we have to prepare them for what comes next when that is no longer there. And I am proud to say that I know every single athletic program in the UNC system pretty well, although I'm not sure I'm feeling too much knowledge about Chapel Hill right now. But I can honestly say that we run the most ethical, the most outstanding, and the most upstanding program in the entire state.
Wow, thank you, Chancellor. Thank you for kicking us off. Our chancellor is very special to us. And actually, yesterday I was talking, in the 20-some years I've been here, one of the things, because people ask me, why have you stayed so long? And I'm like, I've had the privilege and honor to work with several chancellors. And one of the things that have kept me here, each of our chancellors have seen a unique role that we as an athletic department can play, not only on our campus, but in our community. And Chancellor, you have really kept that tradition up. But I'm going to give you a little harder question, because she truly is if she is not at the Board of Governors, if she is in the Pisgah House, she is coming out to soccer, volleyball, swimming, basketball. You've been to so many athletic events. Is there a special story or a student athlete, because you know a lot of our student athletes, that you want to share something since you've been here that you've seen or witnessed, or maybe a student athlete you've met?
Sure. I'd like to talk about Clay Edmondson, who's a baseball player, a pitcher who graduated last year. He was drafted and now plays for the
He's in the minors with the Padres.
He's in the minors with the Padres. And Clay is a redhead, left-handed sidewinder, great kid, amazing pitcher, and a man of few words. I'd met him several times and talked to him. And the day after Hurricane Helene hit, I was walking towards Brown Cafeteria to walk the line. So I made it a habit as students were lined up to get meals. I went up and down, and I just want to make sure everybody's okay and talk to everybody. And I was walking back from that, and here comes Clay Edmondson, and I got ready for the Hi, Chancellor. He stopped and talked to me for 20 minutes. And I had never had that experience with him before. And we talked about his experience during the hurricane, his anxiety not being able, he hadn't been able to contact his parents yet. It was very early on. And he just wanted to talk. And then he started talking about what he wanted to do. And it was a moment where I realized that these athletes, there is so much depth to them. There's so much more than just what we see on the field or on the court or in the pool. And his understanding and his care, he was very concerned about his teammates. And he was concerned about other athletes as well. And so it was amazing. And I saw his parents a few months later at one of the games, and I told them about that encounter, and they looked at me as though I were from Mars. They said, he talked to you for 20 minutes? He doesn't talk to us for 20 minutes. So, and I've had that experience so many, many times. I can't tell you the amazing relationships that I see and the amazing kids that I have met. And I hope you all get to meet some of our student athletes.
Well, I think that's one of the unique things about what we do at UNC Asheville. Not only does our chancellor know our student athletes, she knows our students. And those of us that work in athletics, it really is. Our why is about student athletes. And talk about someone who has now 20-some years of knowing student athletes. I'm going to go to Rebecca next. Rebecca, share with these folks a little bit more about our student athletes, like how many we have, grade point average. I mean, you got the whole demographics, where we're from, so they really understand that we have a unique group of student athletes on this campus.
We do have a unique group, and right now it's as I was telling some people when they came in, my favorite time of the year and the busiest time of the year, because I get to meet the student athletes and talk to them about their academic schedules for the next semester. We have about 285 student athletes. They are from a number of different countries. I think we were 58 internationals last year, and then we're up to about over 70 international student athletes this year. So I think we bring a lot of diversity to the campus, both of hometowns and countries, languages. We have a commitment to the academic side of the world. It isn't a push for me. I wouldn't be in this job for 20 years if I had to battle the coaches about the importance of academics. That would be too exhausting. The coaches are 100% behind the concept that their athletes are students. They will have a career after their 4 years with us ends, and what they learn during this time is going to be a key component of that. So that reciprocal and wraparound care for the student athletes, I think, has been really beneficial to their development and their sense of belonging and support from the chancellor to their coaches, to the department, to their professors. So that's, I think, a positive.
I'm going to make you go a little deeper. What are our student athletes major in? I mean, give a little more, like, what are their interests? What are some of those kinds of things? Because you meet with every one of them.
So there are, I would say, about a third of the student athletes who are interested in something with life in sports after graduation, and 2/3 that will end their sporting interest even in participating with graduation. So today we had somebody who will be a graduating senior in May. She's interested in sports psychology. She's looking at graduate programs, so I'm going to consider her as staying in the world of sports. But we have students who are, I met with 3 in the last 2 weeks that are in the process of sitting for professional exams, whether it's law school, med school, or dental school, another one for vet school. So the careers that they pursue are not necessarily tied to athletics. after graduation. We have a number of them who are going into business. Our two highest majors are probably business and health sciences. And within that health science major are the ones who are interested in going into coaching and the ones that are interested in going into med school. So the major encompasses a lot of areas.
Well, and you have another unique relationship with Ollie, and something that really distinguishes us that's not done at a lot of universities. Talk about our Leaders for Leaders program and how that got started, the role Ollie played in that, and where we are today.
So 10 years ago, in about this time of year, we met with Jim Lindbergh and Dick Murray with Ollie and representatives from the Cliffs at Walnut Cove. And the concept was a way for the community members to serve as mentors to our current student athletes. And so what we developed from November to January was this formula of we'll ask the student athletes who are interested in having a mentor, and we'll match them with someone who has a field of interest that they're interested in pursuing. So we piloted the first year with just seniors. We had 10 seniors who signed up, and we matched them with 5 members from Ollie and 5 members from the Cliffs community. And at the end of the school year in May, we asked each one of those groups, what are things that we need to improve? What are things that went well? And I think I knew we had a hit when the group of students look at me and say, I don't know what the mentors are getting out of this, but it's the best thing I've ever done. And the mentors look at me and say, I don't know what the student athletes are getting out of this, but it's the best thing I've ever done. And you got a winner then. And so for the last 10 years, we've continued that program to the point of having 100 matches. We have our leadership, so now we have a more formalized structure. We have a committee comprised of Sandy Bowles, and I know that I did see Larry in here. Okay, oh, there we go. Are both members of that committee, and we work with the student athletes as they identify an interest in a particular field of mentorship. And so sometimes that can be career path, and sometimes it's as simple as I'm swimming and I am from Italy, and I would like someone to be at my swim meets to cheer for me. And so that ability to give them a connection that isn't tied to their athletic department, isn't tied to their teammates, is, I think, really beneficial and creates a good sense for them.
Tell us one specific story about a student athlete and their mentor that you really feel like that mentorship contributed to their success out in the real world. And I know you could tell 10 today, but pick one.
So I'm far enough away from you that I'm going to pick 2.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
The first one, because I think they demonstrate sort of the two ends of the role of the mentoring program. So we have one, Kevin O'Connor, first semester, connected with a graduating senior, and Kevin is the godfather to Corey's second child. All right, so they have stayed connected. They knew each other for less than 6 months, and they've stayed connected for years afterwards. And so that relationship has to obviously be very meaningful to both of them. The other one is sort of the opposite end of the spectrum, and we had a computer science cross-country student athlete and someone in the community at Walnut Cove who had that as their primary career. Their first career was in computer science. And so the student athlete said to the mentor, I just need help getting my first big boy job. And so the mentor really worked with him on what a lot of us think of basic skill sets of establishing eye contact. Show me your resume, have a conversation with me over the phone or over a Zoom call. And so their relationship hasn't lasted for years and years, but that student to this day will say that mentor was a key component to them finding their first job because they felt like that investment in their success made a difference.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing those two. it's amazing what that program has done for our student athletes and I think for the mentors. And it was a great way. It has expanded. It's no longer just Ollie or Walnut Cove. It's community members. It's really like what I call a who's who of Asheville, people that have had really successful careers. And our student athletes love that kind of opportunity. So if any of you that are part of that, I want to say thank you. Before I get to our coaches, because the coaches are going to want to talk X and O's, and they're going to want to ask you to help them coach, I'm sure. No, I'm just kidding. I want to turn to Colin next. You know, we've talked a lot, the first two questions, about student athletes, because that is our why. Talk a little bit, Colin, because you've been here now 5 years, you know. We're a Division I program. What does that mean? What conference do we compete in? Who, you know, tell us a little bit about the operations of the athletic department within, you know, NCAA and the Big South and Atlantic Sun.
So we have 16 sports programs, 15 in the Big South, 1 affiliate member of the Atlantic Sun Conference. An affiliate member is, our department is a part of, like I said, the Big South, but affiliate member is when you join another conference because the Big South doesn't have enough member schools for that sport. And it's very common throughout the country. So we are part of the Atlantic Sun. Like I said, they have their own championships, they have their own commissioner, but Elizabeth Likens and of course Janet Cohn has those regular meetings like we do with the Big South. And the landscape of, you said the landscape of?
Yeah, Division I.
Landscape of Division I is, biggest thing is we try to pretty much treat our department as first class, whether it be athletically, academically, student development. Our goal is to not only, we definitely, we're very competitive, we want to win, but at the same time we want to win the right way. And we want to make sure that we give them the resources we can so when they leave, they come back and give back as an alumni, whether it be financially, whether it be employment, or just donating their time. And that's just growing human beings for the new world that they're going out to. So that's the biggest thing. And I think we have a good group of kids here, or I say kids, adults here, that they do a great job of, like I said, managing academics, but also managing being an adult in the new world and adapting to the life of athletics and collegiate athletics.
Talk specifically about your role. You're the Associate AD for Internal Operations, which includes sports supervision. Talk about how we're not only coaching student athletes, but we're coaching coaches. Talk about that role.
Yeah, coaching coaches, I think that's the biggest thing is we have to grow our coaches in order, because I say if we coach our coaches to be servant leaders, then they're going to give that same type of relationship to the student athletes, and you know that you get the job well done. We're breaking down into, I think 5 or 6 sports supervisors, and the sports supervisor is pretty much that first line of defense before it gets to Janet Cohn. So we try to do what we can to day-to-day get stuff done before it gets to the boss. At the same time, we'll still loop her in, but our job is to make sure to have that person to go to, whether it be scheduling, budget, it could be student meetings, it could be academics, it could be anything. And I think it works well within our department. I think we do a really good job with our admins. We all have different duties, but our first and foremost, our goal is support our coaches, anything they do, and then that goes into our student athletes. And it's easy when you got good coaches like Mike and Alex because they know what they need to do and they come to you. It's more like not micromanaged, but we like to be micro-informed, so kind of lead from a distance.
Besides working with coaches, what other kinds of, as Rebecca mentioned, I call wraparound services, because you supervise, you and Rebecca both, about mental health. What are those things we provide to student athletes that give them a little bit of an edge, not only in academic performance, but in performing like on the fields and courts of the pool, or then leaving to go into life?
I think athletics is a very big integral point, and like I said, a lot of employers try to hire athletes because they know how to win, but they also know how to lose. And in regards to navigating the new world and getting into the job market, but in regards to mental health, nutritionists, I'm oversee sports medicine and strength conditioning. So all those aspects we try to give to them for them that they can be an adult when they graduate. And like I said, even from Leaders for Leaders to having them a part of search committees. Like we literally have a student a part of our head coaching search committees or a admin search committee because we want them to know, understand, see the optics of the other side of how things work. So when they get into those interviews, they know things to do right. But also a couple of them came to me after, they're like, yeah, I'm never going to do that in an interview. and those are adults, so it actually works for them. And I tell them, first thing I tell them, they're on the Zoom with me, Janet, Mike, and it could be with Rebecca. I say, you are a search committee member. You're not a student on this. So please voice your opinion because I asked you to be a part of this, which means I value your opinion as a student athlete. And I think they respect that because they're seen as an equal instead of just student asking questions about X's and O's. They're asking questions about, hey, what do you think about mental health? How do you feel about, how do you treat a student athlete in these situations? And it gives them a different point of view.
Yeah, and part of, we've been now for 20-some years, champions in athletics and leaders in life. What we are trying to do, certainly we want to win on the fields and courts, but we also think about champions in athletics with graduation rates, getting jobs. They then transition. We want them to be leaders in whatever they choose to do when they leave us, and I think that's a really unique position for us. We're going to turn to these coaches, and I'm not going to be easy on the coaches. I've been easy with the administrators and the chancellor. Yeah. I'm going to turn to Mike Morrell first. And Mike, my question right now is not about our basketball, but I'm going to ask you why. Why do you coach? Give us a little bit on what your why is.
Good question. I'm not into a lot of coach speak, so I'll be honest with you. I got into coaching because I didn't know what else to do. I think a lot of coaches get up here and it changed lives and everything. No, I got into coach. I wanted to be a teacher. My mom's in real estate, and my sister's in real estate. So if I wasn't in coaching, I guess I would have found my way into real estate. Yeah, that's what I didn't know what else to do. I grew up in a single-parent home. Coaches were the most important leadership influences in my life outside of my mother, and my mother worked all the time, so my babysitter was the Boys and Girls Club. And so the Boys and Girls Club really raised me when I wasn't in school. And so I learned how to compete there. I learned how to do a lot of things there. I got a lot of bad habits there. As you can imagine, 7 years old, growing up around 15, 16-year-olds at that time. So then, in my dream job was to be a high school basketball coach in Elizabethton, Tennessee. That's what I wanted. That was my dream job. And my dream ended when I student taught. I'm like, this is not for me. I'm very, very hyperactive. I don't like desks. I've been sitting up here for 30 minutes and I need to move. I don't enjoy sitting. That's why I got a lot of whoopings when I was a kid. And so that was it. And so I figured, if I can't teach, and I still want to coach, you can only do that one place, and that's in college. And so that's when I got into college. So, the why for me, it changes. We've had more change in our sport in 3 years than we have in 30. And, I still believe that you can build a program that's based upon treating people the right way. That is, we talk about, student athletes and being students first, and that's true. But what you have to understand, too, is a lot of my players come here with basketball first, and that's a fact. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And so while they're here, I think it's a great responsibility that we have to try to get them to understand, no, the ball will become flat at some point. And what are you arming yourself with? Because we do have 6 players right now making a real living playing professional basketball. So you can come to UNC Asheville and achieve that goal. That being said, most of ours do not. But we've got 2 kids that work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car that are making a good living right now. And so is that my why? My goals are their goals. I've got to teach them that their goals have to align with winning. And that is really, really challenging right now.
Based on your experience, and I think you shared a little bit of this. How do you take your experience, because I've witnessed this firsthand, and put this into our men's basketball program? What are some of the things you think you do uniquely with our men's program, just because the way you grew up or what you learned from your mentor? By the way, Shaka Smart is very important. How do you put that into our program?
Well, I tell them, you know, in recruiting, I'm not for everybody. You can come to our practice and you can figure that out really quickly. I'm not for everybody. I'm probably for more of the minority than I am the majority. Because if you don't want to be held accountable, this ain't the place for you. Don't come here. And you really, just so you know, you really start to dive into that right now, because there's this thing called playing time that's being doled out, and not everybody plays. I got 13 scholarships, 5 get on the court. You know, our rotation will be about 9 to 10. And so the first thing that I really try to understand is what their backgrounds are. You know, if you can really try to, it's not perfect, but if you can try to understand what a kid's background is, and yes, they're adults, but they're kids. And the best version of them is not going to be while they're here. The best version of them is going to be hopefully when they're 28, 30, whatever, as they continue to grow. But I tell mine all the time, if you can control it, you'll be held accountable to it. So if you really think about that, I am held accountable to what I can control. I can control being on time. I can control sprinting the floor in transition. I necessarily can't control if I make every shot. So that's really it for me. And that was Coach Smart. To me, that was the genius of Coach Smart. And after that is really when you can try to get a kid to believe he can do things that are a little bit bigger than him. And there's been no greater example for that in me in my time than for you all who have came to games for a long time. There's a kid named Tajon Jones here. He was the all-time leading scorer. You're not supposed to have favorites as coaches. That is not true. He is my favorite player ever. He will always be my favorite player ever. His jersey hangs in my office for a reason. And he's the greatest example that I've ever seen in 21 years of coaching of a kid who was not perfect, was he, Rebecca?
No. A lot of learning.
But he left here with 2 degrees. He's making a great living right outside of Milan, Italy right now. Who wouldn't sign up for that?
Yeah.
Playing professional basketball. And he could have left here at any time he wanted to go into the transfer portal, but he didn't. And so that's kind of what keeps me in coaching, because if we get into some of this other stuff, then real estate will be in my future.
Yes, yes. We won't go there, because I want basketball in your future, at least while I'm still here. And I know the chancellor feels that way. But you mentioned something there. You know, Mike talked about the number of players we have playing professionally, but he mentioned Tajon's got 2 degrees. And this is unique, especially in the world of the trans. How many players have we helped graduate over the last 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, so my first class, Martha of the Year, I won 4 games. Remember that?
Yeah.
Anyway, that class of Cody Jude, Deacon Heath, Luke Lawson, Tajon Jones, and L.J. Thorpe was a class of 5. We graduated all 5 of them. Since that class graduated 4 years ago. Since that class, we've graduated 17 basketball players, which is, I actually had, because I like to tout that, is about 4 more than any other school in the Big South. And so there's a lot of reasons. That's not coaching. That's finding the right people, and that's supporting the right people. But 17 in 4 years.
And that is something, if you tell anything about us, it does reinforce everything the chancellor and Rebecca and Colin said. In men's basketball, That's unheard of in 2025 because of the transfer portal, and they go multiple times, that we have graduated that many men's basketball players. And kudos to Mike and Rebecca and all the people, all of the mentors that wrap their arms around our student athletes, because you definitely are making a difference.
I will say this, Janet, if you'll allow me. Our university's done a really good job, led by Chancellor Van Oort, of helping us help student athletes. There's been some programs we've been able to implement for guys like Toyaz Solomon, preseason player of the year in the league, whom Martha tutors in the back, that has allowed us to keep them here in Asheville and also pursue professional goals and also graduate. We've got 2 kids on our team like that right now. Justin Wright, number 55, if you come to the game on Tuesday, and Toyaz Solomon, 0, already have college degrees. But because we've, what's the right word? I don't want to say change, but because we've adapted, we've been able, because if I didn't have those 2 right now, those are 2 of our better players.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm going to bring this one up because some of you were around, and I know Randy and a couple of you guys. Kenny George graduated from this university after almost losing his life because of our faculty, and this was before there was a lot of remote learning, because it is very important that we graduate students. And, there's multiple stories we can tell about, but I want to be very clear that it's a little different here. Our student athletes actually earn their degree. There's no easy classes for us, and we don't want the easy way. I mean, our student athletes are doing the work themselves, and I think that's why that UNC Asheville degree means so much to them and to their parents or their guardians or whoever. Mike, before I go to Alex, I want to, Alex he's a rookie, first-time head coach. You want to give him some advice before we pass this? What advice would you give to a first-time head coach?
You don't have enough time in the day for that.
I've learned that.
No, it was one. Shock, you say this all the time. When I was an assistant at VCU, and I went through this here, every year I would get opportunities to go be a Power 5 assistant, Clemson or wherever, and Shaka would always. One, I would have never left because I was so fearful of him. I was afraid he'd just ruin me. But he'd always say, it's not who you work for, it's who you work with. And I learned that the year that I won 4 games and didn't get fired, because I thought I knew everything. And the more that you have success, people tend to give you these microphones because they think you know everything. And so I tell my staff this all the time. Now I'm on all these podcasts. It's like all the time. It's like you're a podcast, or what's your opinion on this? Or somebody calls you, asking your opinion. And the thing that I did not realize my first year is that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not have the answer. It's okay. I had to be right on everything. I had to make for sure my staff knew that I was right. And that was just such a short-term way of looking at things. So anytime someone's going to be a head coach for the first time, or in any leadership position at all, I think the ability to show vulnerability is huge, because you do not have to know everything. And I think people in leadership, and we're all in leadership in our own way, and leadership is a trickle-down effect. But show me somebody that's not vulnerable and who knows everything, and I'll show you a losing coach. It's kind of like, show me a quiet gym, and I'll show you a losing gym. And so I would just tell you, man, you don't have to know everything, because you don't. But neither does Janet Cohn, and she's been doing this at the highest of high levels, 21, 22, however many years. So just be open to mistakes, because they're coming.
Oh, wow. All right, that's a great handoff to Alex. Alex, for this group, since you are fairly new to UNC Asheville and literally a first-time head coach, give us a little of your background, where you played, why you're in coaching, and how you made your way to UNC Asheville.
So before I got into coaching, I scouted for the Los Angeles Angels. I'm kind of like Mike. I don't know what else to do. I just love sports. I love baseball. I love competition. So I got into scouting. That was fun, but you kind of evaluate the player, you write your report, and then you send it up to the people that really make the decisions. So it's a lot more fun being on the other side of the fence, I like to say, because once you see the kid play, it's kind of like, eh. So after that, I was like, I think I'd really enjoy coaching. I went to Ryder. My first job was at Ryder in New Jersey, who I actually coached our current recruiting coordinator here when he was a sophomore. So kind of a full circle thing. I spent a year at Elon, 2 years at James Madison as the infield coach and recruiting coordinator, then obviously got hired here. But before I got into the real world, I played at the University of North Carolina for 3 years, and I just found out I played my last year at the University of Nebraska, so I did not know you were a Husker as well.
Oh, wow.
So I 3 years at North Carolina, graduated from there in 2016, and then did my grad year. This was before the portal. I had a year left to play and finished up at University of Nebraska, played for Darren Erstad, who I owe a lot to. He played in the major leagues for 14 years. He was the #1 overall pick, won a World Series, so that's kind of like a guy I lean on a lot for kind of anything. He's an awesome guy and was a really good player and coach.
So in this journey to becoming a head coach, because I know you believe in this too, tell us about a mentor too, because I want to bring this back to Leaders for Leaders. This mentoring is very important. So how has a mentor helped you with your career?
Well, I will say I don't think I would be here without Barry Davis, who actually spoke to our athletic department a week or so ago. He was my first boss at Ryder, and I tell people this all the time. I think some of the reasons that I love coaching so much is because of the way he treated me. I've had 3 or 4 different bosses now as an assistant, and Barry, there was never a dumb question. He never made me feel like I was in the way or anything like that. He always wanted to help. And even after I only worked for him for a year, he's always a text away. I actually talked to him last night about like an HBO show. So there's more of a relationship than just I worked for him for a year. And then when all this kind of happened, he was my first phone call. Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, I think I have a shot at this job. How do I go about this? Because I honestly never even wanted to be a head coach. I think it just kind of happened. I have a lot of friends that, like, that's all they care about. I'm going to be a head coach. I'm going to be a head coach. And I never even thought about it. And it just kind of happened. So having a guy to lean on like Barry has been unbelievable. And it's such a great relationship. And the same with my boss at James Madison, Marlon Eichenberry. I mean, we have our first scrimmage tomorrow, and it'll be my first time as a head coach, and I'm nervous. And he used to have this game sheet that you don't really think about as assistant. And I was like, hey, what was that game sheet you used to have at JMU? Like, do you mind sending me that? And of course, he sends it within 10 minutes. And I called him, and he kind of went over, something as small as the umpires' names. So when I'm talking to an umpire, I'm talking to Jake or Jerry, and I'm not just, you seem a little more professional and kind of the way to go about things. So I've been able to lean on them so much, and I know I would not be here without them. And to this day, I still talk to both of them. So those would be my 2 guys I've worked for that I really appreciate. So.
Well, speaking of having your first scrimmage tomorrow as a head coach, obviously you can't control the weather, so it's getting cold. But let's back up a little bit. What are a couple things already that you have learned, not only as the head coach, but about our team? You share a little bit about our team.
It's definitely a new team. We have 16 new players, like I said, a new staff. We went really heavy on recruiting pitchers this summer. I thought that was an area that we really needed to improve. Obviously, you can improve in a lot of areas, but that was kind of the main focus. So I think our first 6 or 7 commits this summer were pitchers. And we definitely poured most of our scholarship money into pitching just because in baseball, you live and die with that. So I really feel like we're a lot better on the mound. I think Matt Gilbertson, our pitching coach, has done an unbelievable job as far as player development, communicating, treats them so well. He's been phenomenal. He was my first hire, and we ended up getting a couple kids that played for him at Pitt. He was a player development guy, pretty much an assistant coach at Pitt last year. He pitched there. He was an all ACC as a player. He's a young guy like me, but I feel a lot better with our depth on the mound. And, we filled in some pieces with junior college kids as far as position players, because we have a really strong sophomore class. I think we returned 7 starters offensively. So we tried to kind of piece fill in the pieces of the guys that were not in that sophomore class. And I think we did a decent job with the junior college kids that will come in and play in the infield for us.
He mentioned young guy, but I'm going to point this out. Y'all are all young guys to me at this point in time in my career. Very young. I do want you, and I'm going to let you answer. I'm going to come back to Mike, because many people want to know, how do you recruit in 2025 with the transfer portal? Do you go watch? I mean, how do people recruit today in 2025? How do you find players? And then I'm going to ask Mike to answer that same question.
So for me, I learned this at James Madison. The first thing I did when I got the job, I got really lucky. The portal opened about a week after I got hired. So the way it works in baseball, there's so many summer leagues. So there's the Coastal Plain League, the Cape, like there's a million, and we're in a great location because it's all kind of up the East Coast. So I pretty much, from Maryland all the way down to Georgia, you kind of can cover it all. So what I do is, honestly, I don't even really spend time looking at the portal. I call all the college summer coaches, and they have lists of who is in the portal and who's not in the portal. So I will go to each coach. They will give me the list of 5-6 guys in the portal, and then I can make my schedule based off who they're playing that night. Maybe I'm driving, stay at my parents' tonight in Durham, watch a Holly Springs game of the CPL, and then drive up to Maryland the next day because the kid's pitching. So it's a lot easier to stay organized by talking to those college summer coaches, because they're a direct line of who is in the portal or who is going in the portal, instead of sitting and refreshing a computer screen. It's like you almost know in advance. So that was really helpful. We've kind of decided to go lighter on the high school kids, just because in today's game you cannot be young. You have to be older, guys that have played. So we've kind of really hammered the high school kids that we think could be really good down the road, and 4 to probably 6 kids, and then really hammered JUCO and portal recruiting. And then the JUCO kids are kind of, we use our connections and go see them in the fall, and if we like them, try to get them in the fall. So,
All right, that's great. Mike, talk about men's basketball recruiting. How does that go down these days?
A lot of different ways. We're still active in high school recruiting. Right now, my team is comprised of, I think, 6 kids we took out of high school and 7 out of the portal. No, 6 out of the portal and 1 junior college. It's just, the elephant in the room for us now is NIL. And that just is what it is. But, for me, we have to know what their gettability is, because right now, the last 2 years we've taken there's 2 signing periods. There's one in the fall, there's one in the spring. We've taken 2 high school kids in the last 2 recruiting classes. We've got 2 committed right now. But you don't know how many scholarships you're going to have, because the portal opens in the spring. So I just tell my staff we need every position, because the most recruited kid on my team next year is going to be Cam Taylor, because everybody in America is going to try to recruit him off of my team. So retaining my best players is my number one goal. That is recruiting. Anybody who says that's the nature of the beast. Men's basketball. Tom Izzo said the greatest thing that I have heard in ages yesterday. He said, "I love my job, but I don't respect my profession." Mm-hmm. I love my job, but I don't respect my profession right now. That's a whole other panel.
Yeah. You may invite us back.
Yeah.
There you go.
That being said, that gives you a little bit of insight, I think, into how some coaches who are still really, and this is not a holier than thou thing, but I'm still holding on to building a program. There's a fundamental challenge with that right now, because you could argue you're not really building a program when you're bringing in 8 new kids a year. We've got teams in our league that literally turned over every single scholarship on their roster. Is that building a program? Well, it's not to me, because the development piece of the player and most importantly of the person now is put in a microwave, and you're asked to do that in 6 months' time. One of the joys of coaching used to be watching a kid grow from his freshman to sophomore year, and then getting really excited about what he can do from his sophomore to his junior year. And then you get to champion that kid like you get to champion a Tajon Jones when he gets to the end and he leaves the leading all-time scorer and he hangs 3 banners in Kimmel Arena. It's really hard to do that now. And so there's a real challenge, but it all goes back to recruiting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now it's about a dollar amount, and it's about dealing with agents. And I'm thinking, you're like at UNC Ash? Yeah. Yep. And so recruiting starts for me, and I said this when Janet hired me. I told this to her. Our number one goal in recruiting is to retain our best players, and that was 7 years ago.
And you've done a great job of that. I do want to, we just had a Big South Media Day. And so preseason pick number 2, Big South preseason player of the year. For these folks, whether in the room or who's watching, what are some opportunities? Because they're going to be so fascinated now by what we've just presented. They want to come watch us play. Talk a little bit about the opportunities to watch us play this year in men's basketball.
Well, it's the most non-conference games we've ever had at home. And then not only that, we've got 2 other opportunities here in Asheville on November the 30th and December the 1st. I think it's the 1st. It's a Sunday and a Tuesday. It's a Sunday and a Tuesday. I get my numbers mixed up right now. Where we play Appalachian State and UNC Greensboro downtown. So that's 9 opportunities, not counting next Tuesday, where you can see us play. So really 10 opportunities before we even get into league play. And I think one of the challenges for me is we're the 36th winningest program in the country over the last 3 years in college basketball, and we are 38-3 at home. So any Duke fans in here? Raise your hand.
Okay.
Okay, good.
There
Great.
you go.
How about North Carolina? Any North Carolina fans?
Ooh.
Just so you know, that's better than both of those schools.
All right. I like that. I like that marketing there.
So that is, but we really don't get a good attendance till January. But we just said we got 10 opportunities to come see our team play up until that point. And it's kind of like you got to prove that you're going to be good. We're the winningest team in the Big South the last 4 years. And we've been 5th in attendance. And so bring somebody. You'll enjoy it. I promise you. If you don't, I'll pay for your ticket after. I'll be happy to do it. But you will, because the staff that Janet has does an unbelievable job of trying to make it not just about coming to a game, but having a good experience so you'll come back. And so I still think that we can one day be up there in the top 2 in attendance, because the results are there. And so, but we got to try to go do it again.
Yeah.
Let me throw in that last year, UNCA beat App State. I was there.
Okay, there you go, Martha. By the way, one of our very true blue fans, Miss Martha Marshall. I do want to say this, Abby and Rocky are in the back. If you need information about the schedule or how to get tickets, and I know as the year goes by and you go, oh, wow, it's dark at 6 p.m. and it's easy to get into one of our games and easy to get out. I mean, it's really a great experience. And we do play a lot of games on the weekends at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock. It's early. So we're trying to make it an experience, not only for you to come watch men's and women's basketball, but to support our great pep band, our cheer and dance. I mean, we have a lot of students that are engaged. They're behind behind the cameras on our ESPN. I mean, it was really a way to engage a lot of our students, and your participation is really appreciated. It's a fun environment, and even if you're Duke or Carolina, some shade of blue, as close to royal blue, we appreciate. So show up. I want to come back to the chancellor real quick. Chancellor, you've heard a lot right now. We're, trying to convince people to support UNC Asheville. Your role here, because you do come to a lot of events. Talk about like what we do bring to the campus and the community, and how our friends help us in that way.
Absolutely. I think that there's nothing more important than a university's relationship with their community. And we work so hard here to make sure that people understand that we are your hometown university. You may not have graduated from here, but you're here. You're here on our campus today. You've been tied to us. We've been tied. And becoming that hometown university, I think, is probably the most important thing that mutually benefits both the university and the city. There are no great cities without great universities. And the role that we play here in bringing the community together, in providing fellowship, providing a chance to get to know and to interact with our students is hugely important. And the community support for us is more important than you can ever imagine. Not just in the dollars that come in through our advancement efforts, not just in the scholarship money we raise, but in being here for us and being here with us. Our students need to be with you, and they need to know that you are supportive of them. It will help them in so many ways, and you will have a great time doing it.
You definitely will have a great time, and that lady will be there. By the way, she is very competitive and likes for us to win. So sometimes we have to remind her, don't yell at the officials, And by the way, you might get caught on camera, ESPN. But we love having, and our student athletes notice that our chancellor's there. They notice if faculty are they notice if their mentors are there. And they are very, very interested in getting to know you and you getting to know them. We're not like at a distance. We're not that kind of athletic department. Like we welcome you to come be part of our Bulldog family. I also want to point out something right now. Yes, I have 2 men's sports coaches here. UNC Asheville is also unique in the fact that we are gender equitable. We meet Title IX, and our women's sports are very successful, very important. So I'm going to ask Colin, hit on some highlights, first of all, with fall sports, and you might want to hit on that women's golf program we got that's doing some great things nationally.
So men's soccer right now, they're third place, got 2 games left, got a chance of hosting November 3rd, so that'll be at home at Greenwood if we get a chance of hosting the opening round for the Big South Conference. Women's volleyball is also tied for 3rd place. They got 7 games left, but they play Friday, Saturday, so that's going to go by really fast. And they, November 21st to 23rd, I got to get these dates correct. The Big South tournament is at High Point. Women's soccer is sitting, I think, around the 7th spot, but they're 1 game away from the fifth place, which is in the conference tournament. So top 6 make it, so they got 2 more games left. These last 2 games are pivotal for them. Cross country, both teams are really doing really good. We finished 3rd and 5th place. Women finished 3rd, men finished 5th place last week out of 23 teams. And they both finished, they led the Big South schools on both sides. So that's actually really good going into the Big South tournament Big South championship, which is October 31st. And our golf team is off to a really good start. Coach Cash is doing really, really good. I can't remember the ranking there.
I'll give you those
Yes,
rankings. Our coach is ranked one of the top 20 golf coaches in the nation. So kudos to coach. And our program, which is actually going to celebrate their 10th anniversary, because remember, it's one of our newer programs coming up in the fall. They have broken into the top 100. I think they're 89th in the country. And that's out of all schools, big Power 4 schools. So we're hosting our collegiate invitation of all. The weather's been so nice until Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week. It's going to be a little cold and wet, but we'll play some golf. They're off to a great, great start. And of course, our women's swimming is competing right now, and Elizabeth Lycan, that has done a phenomenal. She is the only coach we've ever had in women's swimming, because that was a sport we brought back. They continue to compete at a high level. And our men's and women's tennis, believe it or not, are actually today competing in what they call the Big South Individual Championships. They'll have the team championships in the spring. So we're in what we call the overlap season. Everybody's practicing and competing, everybody. So it's really interesting. And women's basketball, too, is a very interesting team. What?
I was about to say, speaking of practice.
Yeah, I know. Mike's got to go to practice, but we're going to wind this down. I told him he could leave early, so please, if you see him ease out, he has gone to practice, and we're going to let him go.
Thank you.
He actually did that so that you wouldn't ask him any questions. I know how that goes. But thank you, Mike.
Before you leave, I want to say something. I got to know Tajon Jones' grandmother, who came to things. So you guys had a major impact, because she said when I talked to her, he stayed here for 2 reasons. One, because he got a great education. And when he goes back to Tennessee, he always speaks with young men, and he tells them how important that is. And second, he loved the team and the way he was coached.
Well, I'll send her the check next week on that.
Thank you. As Mike's leaving, I want to say how proud I am of him. He's done a great job, so thank you. He's made our university look really, really good, because he was, much like Alex, a first-time head coach who, sometimes you just have a gut feeling that somebody they got the right values, and the coaching part will come along with them, and he certainly has done that. I do want to, and Ms. Martha started this, we could go on and on. We love our Bulldogs. I do want to say we're not perfect. We make mistakes, like Mike said, and we learn. We always say there's winning and learning. There's only 2, W's, the win or learn. And we feel like we have gotten better and better through the years, and a lot of that. And I got to tell you, Rebecca Nelms is, you talk about award winning, she's the MVP of our athletic department, because it is all about the education part, keeping them eligible. Yes, they want to play at a division, and I'm going to say this over and over. Our student athletes would not be here if we weren't Division I. They want to compete at the highest levels. They want to be pushed, and that's a very, very important part of this. But I want to leave some time for questions, so help me out here. If you have a question, Ms. Martha's got the microphone, and we also have people online, right? So we'll get those. Okay, I think we got a couple questions. Hand off.
I like sports, and I love basketball, and I'm not just saying it because I'm here, but I always wonder, because these kids are like on a schedule, and they have, sometimes they have several games in a week, I imagine, but what about their homework?
Okay, that's a good question. The bus. Well, I'm going to let Rebecca, because Rebecca can also tell you there's, and we're working on this right now, too, like what we call what is reasonable amount of their time. So, Rebecca, talk about what the maximum they can do and how do they handle when they're gone, all the way to the green sheets.
Right. So the coaches set the study hall requirements for their teams. And so most of the coaches set those based on a sliding scale. First-time students, first-time freshmen that have no GPA are going to have more hours. Maybe an upperclassman who has a 3.5 is not in any study hall at all. So the coaches are setting those expectations, and the majority of our coaches, their study hall structure is my personal favorite. Is very flexible in that it's teaching. One of the things that we talk to freshmen about is you're used to a system that says you're in class from 8 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you will never have a semester where that is your structure here. And so by having an open, you need to get X number of hours during the course of the week during what a lot of the coaches call banker's hours, teaches them to use that 3.5 hour time slot between practice and their first class, or their first class and their second class in the study hall. It's the number of different places that have the opportunity for students to do study hall, but also if they're meeting with their tutor, that counts as study hall hours. So it's not that you have to be in the library at 7 o'clock with both feet flat on the floor to count as study hall hours. It's learning how to fill in those blanks during the day. And we start with that in an early notification as well with the professors. We give the student athletes a travel sheet, a green sheet, and it starts the conversation with the professors of these are the 3 days that I think I'm going to miss because of my obligations for sport. And they work backwards on, is the work due ahead of time? Can I do the makeup exam when I get back? So they work out those details there.
Yeah, and I want to follow with that. Our faculty are unbelievable because the good part about this, our student athletes are some of the best students at the university. And they too realize you never want them to choose between academics or athletics. There's got to be a way to do both. And one more plug, how many in the last 10 years, how many we have had the #1 graduate in the senior class?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that one because I'm afraid I'm missing one, but 5 I can count right immediately.
And so that's what I call teamwork between our faculty members and our coaches and our athletic administrative staff to make sure. The other thing we're really, they have to have a life too. I mean, you come, there's so many other experiences besides athletics and academics. There's other things happening on our campus and our community. And I think that is another reason we have a higher retention rate in our athletic department because we're trying to balance that and not make them choose, you got to do this or not the other two. And so it's not always perfect, but that's helped. Another question I saw, there we go.
I'm curious what the sport is that you have to go to the Atlantic Sun Conference.
Yeah. Colin, you want to talk about that?
It's a swim and dive, swimming and diving team. So they're part of ASUN. They were part. And how it works is we have a swimming and diving team. So they have their different championships. I think it's been at Knoxville. Yeah, Knoxville. So they have the. No, it's Knoxville. It's Knoxville. University of Tennessee. They got to go to Knoxville for that, and they've done a good job. It is a hard conference though because they have Liberty in it. They got a couple of schools in there that have been having programs for a long time, and they've done a good job. But Elizabeth has done a great job, like Janet said, from building this program from ground up to where it is now. So I have no doubt in my mind that we'll definitely compete at a high level depending on what our finish is.
And that's one of the things we're looking at too across the country because we talk a lot about college basketball, college football, but what we call our Olympic sports, many universities, and we're not one that's going to do this, they're dropping those Olympic sports to try to put more money. And so you end up having some conferences like ours with swimming where us and Gardner-Webb have swim and dive. And then there's even some Power 4 schools that they don't have enough in their conference. So that ASUN conference is a tough conference for swimming, but it's schools from all over. And by the way, they're not in Knoxville this year. They're going to have a nice trip to Orlando, Florida to compete. So I think they're liking that part. Great question. Okay.
This is a real curveball. I hope it's not inappropriate. Have you ever had to deal with drug issues?
Wow.
We were in school so many decades ago, you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And Rebecca's been with me the longest, and I won't lie to you. I'll be very honest. When we got here, I decided I wanted to sleep at night because I work hard. I mean, ask the chancellor. I'll text her at 4:30 in the morning and late until night. She doesn't have to answer, though. She's the boss. But I decided that it was going to be very important for the coaches we hire and the staff who then go recruit student athletes that we call it a culture of distinction. This is what we expect of Bulldogs. And I'm glad to say, have we had issues from time to time? Yes. But when I actually do go to sleep at night, I'm not getting these phone calls in the middle of the night because our student athletes are doing something they should not do. And it starts with who the coaches, as Mike said. You get to know the young people and their parents or their guardians. Young people make mistakes. You did, I know. We all came through college. I'm telling you, if my mother knew half of what I did, oh my. But we get that part. That's part of college. But we really are pretty, at least under what we believe in, you know, we're going to teach you, we're going to coach you, we're going to give you a chance, a second chance. But like in baseball, third strike, you probably need to go somewhere else where that's okay if you want to do that. But thank you for asking that question. All right. All right.
I know how important it is to have a team spirit. How do you deal with a situation where all of a sudden one of your, maybe not a star player, maybe a star player, but a regular player decides to transfer? In my experience, that could be devastating to the team. Where did Joe go? And how do you deal with that?
Well,
it's so common now.
I'm gonna put the rookie on, because you know, Alex, we had some baseball players graduate, like Clay, which is really good. But anytime two things happen, sometimes student athletes leave on their own. Sometimes when you have a coaching change. So Alex, you had a couple guys that we tried to keep. So how did you deal with that? And how does it affect our team?
Well, it definitely affects the team, but we always say no one's bigger than the program. And the amount of baseball I watch, there's a lot of really good players out there. So I'll give an example. I won't use names, but we lost a player to a Power 4 school this summer that I begged and begged to stay. And, you know, he made his decision, and we still have a really good relationship. But, well, we replaced him with another Power 4 player who's on our team now that played in the ACC. So, you know, you just adapt to what happens. And, you know, there's probably 5 or 6 of our guys could have done that, and we only lost one. So I'm happy. I want people to want to be here. I want low-maintenance kids. I want people that enjoy playing at Asheville. So I always tell, whenever I go out and recruit, I always joke with the guys. I'm like, hey, I'm going to find your replacement. Like, just joking around with them because they know how competitive it is, and they want to be good, and I think they like when we go recruit because they want to win. So it just goes back to the kids you recruit, and no one's bigger than the team, and there's a lot of really good players out there, and it's our job to go find them. So.
Go ahead, Colin.
And I think a lot of it, when it goes through Coach say, hey, this player is going to make a decision to hop in the portal. I think it's intentionality. So when we recruit them, you got to be transparent with them and what their spot is on the team. You can't promise them a starting spot. You can't say, hey, you're going to play your senior because you don't know. So if that's a clear understanding as a coach and as an administration led by Janet that, hey, we are giving you the scholarship to come be a student athlete at our school. You're going to give them the resources you can succeed. That's all you can ask for. And like I said, if they decide to hop in the portal, hey, we'll help you along the way. It's no hard, but you got to do it the right way. And that's all about. And like I said, they go to another school, graduate, they'll come back, and they may become a coach and want to send a player back to your school. You just never know. So I told them never burn bridges because you never know when you got to cross that same bridge, Breck.
It's good. Another question.
I have one. Janet, either you can answer or pick somebody. Tell us about some of the ways you get the players involved in the community.
Wow.
I feel like I've seen some videos, maybe at the basketball games, of these big, tall players doing Christmas shopping with the little kids.
Well, I'll tell you one, and I'm going to hand off to Rebecca because she, along with the others, track a lot of this. Just yesterday on campus, the turning of the Maples, you had a lot of student athletes and coaches and people up on the quad. I mean, so even it starts on our campus too. What are we doing on campus? Rebecca, you want to throw out one we're really doing this year? You want to start with that one?
Are you talking about the Dream Center?
Yeah.
Yes. So one of the ones this year, there's the Asheville Dream Center. It's run by a former student athlete, a women's basketball player, alum from UNC Asheville, and her husband. And it is a community organization that's in the housing developments. And one of their programs is a holiday shopping program. And so that will be on campus where the kids and their parents come in for, I think it's Candyland is the theme this year. I think is the theme.
And, you know, that one's one that's really close to the heart of Mike, because Mike grew up in the Boys and Girls Club, so he does this thing called Shop with the Dogs, and many of you may participate in that or been part of it. It's grown. I can't even remember how many they had last year that they took shopping, because some of these young people will not have Christmas. But we've done everything from building a playground at Woodfin Elementary School. We send student athletes out, reading programs. We got an education day. If you're coming for Education Day, it's loud, and it's coming up for women's basketball where they, literally bust. I don't know, Abby, how many you got coming? A lot. Yeah, 1,500 young people. I mean, we do coaches clinics. We do camps for young people. Our tennis program has done for several years what they call the Champions Tennis Camp, and it is a camp to introduce underserved youth to tennis. It's free, and they get a tennis racket, they get balls, they get instruction, they get a lunch, because some of these young people, when the summer, parents are working, they don't know where lunch is coming from. So Special Olympics is another one that's really dear to our hearts. So we do a variety of things, and we partner with Ingalls on a lot. Ingalls is one of our partners, but they do a lot, tools for schools and many of those things. We try to partner and do as much as we can, because we think it's important to teach our young people, somebody helped you, you need to learn now how to give back. Go ahead. We got a Stanford fan here. I see that on that shirt.
Oh, yeah. So here in your program, what constitutes a full scholarship versus a partial scholarship, and which sports get full scholarships?
That's good.
I have two questions. That's the first one.
Okay, Rebecca, you want to go over full, partial, and kind of how that lays out for our athletic department?
I'll do my best, and then I'll defer to all the rule changes that have happened in the last 12 hours or whatever it is. So every single one of our sports has at least one student athlete on full scholarships. And so I think there's a misconception around some people in the community that if you're a student athlete, you're on a full scholarship, and that isn't the case. Probably, I think we're right at 97 that are on full scholarship of our 280. And then the full scholarship would cover a standard double room, the most expensive meal plan, and then your tuition and fee charges. And so that's awarded to the student each semester. The partial scholarship can be anything from $50 to $200 short of the full scholarship. So that is really driven by the coaches managing their budget for scholarship in retaining the talent that they need to retain.
I think another thing I want to add to this, and these are valuable members of our programs. We have probably 60 or 70 what we call recruited student athletes. They're on no athletic money. Now, they may be getting a merit scholarship or a loan or something else, but, so when we say this over and over, when you invest in scholarship money for students and or student athletes, we still need your money, because we are not fully funded. Men's and women's basketball and women's golf is, I think women's tennis, because of donors have really chosen those sports and it's your money and whatever. But everybody else, we are still trying to grow those scholarships, because scholarship dollars mean a lot to the young people that we are recruiting, because a lot of them are still first generation students. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind, that you make a difference. You make a difference to our university when you give the scholarships.
So the second question I have is, I was a full scholarship athlete, and I was a JUCO transfer. Mm-hmm. And when I transferred to the four-year school, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to have my scholarship all the way through until I graduated. So thinking of the basketball coach's comment that the last three players didn't play a lot, the first 10 got to play a lot. And this is a problem that's endemic to all of the NIL situation right now. What happens if you're trying to make your program better and that you have X number of spots on your roster? What happens when you realize you've got players that are not going to be able to play for you to improve your program? How do you handle talking to them and what happens? Do you help them find another school? What goes on there?
Well, let me try to answer that, because the rules, in a lot of ways, the NCAA has had to evolve, which is the association, and there are more guardrails and protection for student athletes today than there ever were. Certainly, you and I are coming from the same era where, if you didn't play and I didn't want you by, and that now, and our coaches have had to learn to adapt, so they're a little more careful about who they recruit, because if you bring them, we're on the hook. You're going to pretty much have to keep them, because we don't have extra money, to have multiple people, plus the way it's set up now, like it's a commitment. And under new rules now, student athletes can sign 1-year agreements, they can sign 4-year agreements where you're bound to pay for their scholarship for 4 years, whether they get injured, whether they start, don't start, or whatever. So it is a little different today with a little more protection for the student athletes. What we have found, though, and this is where I think our coaches have done a really good job, sometimes a student athlete, I'm going to say this in a good way, think they're a little bit better than they really are. And so they come and they think they're going to be a starter, no matter what the coaches said. They got what I call somebody in their ear, like a parent or agent or a AAU coach. But they kind of realize, like, I'm probably going to be the 7th player. Sometimes they will go to the coach and say, hey, I love it here, but I want to be a starter. Now, our coach then will sit down with them and say, okay, let's see if we can find you a place. Because it actually benefits us when somebody leaves, if they enroll in another school and graduate, the way this counting of graduation success rate and something called APR, it benefits us to help them either graduate from UNC Asheville or go somewhere else. And sometimes they just want to play more, and that's okay. And so that's sort of, coaches right now, so different than when I was coaching. When I was coaching, probably 80-90% of your job was X and O's. Probably right now that's flipped. About 80-90% of a coach's job is dealing with a lot of other things, whether it's mental health, whether it's what you're talking about, like managing my team, nutrition. I mean, it is just flipped. And it's a different thing. And so that's one reason we're continually trying to coach our coaches and give them more professional development. How do you have a conversation with a student athlete in 2025? And I know Chancellor can say it's no different from students on our campus. Their world is so different. And remember, the group we have in college right now, most of them were in high school during COVID, which was a whole different, Then we had the storm this past fall. Theirs is a different world than maybe what we had, where we just went right on through, and they've seen a lot of different things in their high schools, these shootings and all kinds of things. So you're learning more about really how to work with young people in 2024. I don't know, Chancellor, you want to say something? Because you know a lot about students and what's going on in the world of students.
Yeah, it's just, it's a very, very different landscape from even 10 years ago. And we see the levels of anxiety and mental health issues that are they're troubling. We do feel, however, and I talk to my fellow chancellors all the time, that we're a few years out, far enough out now. We're seeing a change, a shift. We're seeing more stronger social skills. We're seeing stronger social behaviors. We're seeing a lot more connection, I think, as we get a little further outside of the pandemic. But there is still a lot of things going on in the world right now that our students are, that truly do impact our students, and in ways that we were not impacted. I don't remember having the same kind of constant feed into my brain when I was in college that our students have today. And it's really troubling, and we work hard to combat it and help them find ways to deal with it. One of the things that Coach Morrell said really struck me, that athletes know how to, no, it was you who said this, athletes learn how to win, but they also learn how to lose. And we need to help all of our students learn that. because there's an expectation among our general student body, because of the way that secondary education is these days, that they deserve to win all the time, and they don't handle the losing part very well. And so we've really tried to double down on that.
And we're going to do one more question, and then I'll kind of close for us. Okay, Miss Martha, you're in charge. We'll do whatever you want.
So talking about a changing landscape, now that college athletes can monetize their person, do endorsements, it looks very different from, even 5 or 6 years ago. What are your general thoughts on that? What kind of stresses does it create on teams? And what do you say to an athlete who may never actually, particularly women's sports, may never have another opportunity to generate that kind of revenue? And how do you talk to a 20-year-old that's making X amount of dollars off of social media or endorsements when that may seem like a good decision and yet they're 20 years old?
Right. Sort of the beauty of where we are, and I'm going to be transparent and frank, 99% of our student athletes are here to get an education. But with that being said, we have a lot in mass communication, business. They're very creative. And you heard Mike say NIL, name, image, and likeness. There's a way to do that is what I call legal. They have a talent and a skill. They might make videos for Celsius or something, and they might get $500 for doing something. They're earning money like any student could for years. They could go downtown and play the guitar at a pub and make money. We are very supportive of that. You'd be surprised. Some of our female athletes are doing really good with that, and we support them. We offer classes about financial literacy, other ways to help them, reviewing contracts, and they get some of that. Then there's the other side of this that I try to help people not to get confused. This House settlement, and we need to be invited back because this is a whole nother show, where the law now has said, that you can share revenue with your student athletes. That is more what we're talking about, where you're getting the quarterback at Alabama's making, $2 or $3 million, and how does that affect the locker room? We're not in that kind of arena. Now, do we have some other student athletes that are off of their name, image, likeness? They're doing, they're showing up for things, running camps, making some money, yes, but not nearly where it is disrupting a team like you think it could down the road. And so more to come on that. So invite us back and we'll do a whole, maybe Larry, you can have a class on that, what the House settlement is, what name, image, and likeness. It's a great question. We got one more. Last question.
This is probably for Rebecca. You talked about international students and how many you have on campus. The press around universities and international students, there's been an exodus and not encouraging the international student to be part of U.S. education. Is that something that you are dealing with now? And if so, how are you dealing with that?
So to the extent that we've had to deal with it at all, it had to do with a period of time that the ability for international students to get visa appointments in their home country was closed. So once you have your visa appointment, you're good for your duration of study. So the incoming freshmen who were in their home countries trying to get an appointment to get their visa cut it really close. I think we were a week late for one to arrive here because of when the visa was awarded. But the coaches, unfortunately, baseball is, I think, my only sport that doesn't have an international student athlete. But the coaches are still recruiting internationally. We've not had a difficulty. The only difficulty that we had with getting a visa awarded was one of the new requirements is that your social media profile has to be live or public, so the visa agent can look and see what you're posting. And the student athlete had it marked as private. So as soon as she opened it up to public, they were able to review her profile, gave her visa. So we have not had any internationals leave or fail to be able to come because of any of the changes.
Well, thank you. I want to ask you, first of all, would you help me thank our chancellor, who's very busy, that she spent this morning with us. And my distinguished panel, including Mike, thank you for doing this for your boss. They probably felt it. And I'm going to turn it back over to Barbara.
Just for a minute. And yes, thank you to all of you. I know all of you have busy schedules and lots going on. Thank you to those of you who came. As you go out, is it Abby that will be at the door with some handouts about upcoming events, perhaps? And chance to greet Rocky on your way out, too.
Get a selfie. Put it on your social media.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you all.